Can I start? Can you hear me, Taco?
Yes, you can start, my dear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now I will start my presentation. So the broad research topic of my research is dance heritage in Mozambique, Muchongoyo as an enactment of Ubuntu and Ndau epistemologies. I carried out this research in Mozambique. As you can see at the right top corner, there is the map, geographical map illustrating the location of where Mozambique is. I carried out this in Mozambique, which is in the southeastern part of Africa. Mozambique is bordered by Indian Ocean to the east, Tanzania in the north, Malawi and Zambia in the northwest, Zimbabwe in the west, Swaziland and South Africa to the southwest. The capital city of Mozambique is Maputo, and it attained independence on 27 June 1975 from Portuguese colony. The official language for Mozambique is Portuguese and other indigenous languages. There are 10 provinces, which are subdivided into 129 districts and further subdivided into 405 administrative posts. For this research, I decided to use the Ndau people native language, which is Ndau. Why? Because it would enhance my collection of data, since most of the participants are not literate when it comes to communicating with Portuguese. It's a rural setting.
I'm already here.
So I did the fieldwork in a village called Manica. Manica clan of the Ndau is located in Mozambique along the Manica border in Mosurize village. It is a rural setup where people rely on indigenous ways of living. They depend on communal farming for a living and still
Is it me who has lost you, Vavariro?
I think she's lost the connection. I think she has a problem with her connection right now. We can hardly hear her.
But
She's off.
we can see you moving. I think it's okay now.
But I can't hear her. Can you hear her? Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm sorry,
maybe
it's the internet interruption. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
Which slide did you last see?
You can go to the previous slide, maybe.
On setting and linguistic approach?
Yeah, maybe just that, but we lost you just a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Machaga clan of the Ndau is located in Mozambique along the Manica border in Mosurize village. It is a rural setup where people rely on indigenous ways of living. They depend on communal farming for a living and still practice their cultural heritage. Ndau names the ethnic group and the language. So for this research, Ndau was the medium of communication so that I would be able to communicate effectively with the participants. Like I said, it's a rural setup, so most of the people cannot communicate properly with Portuguese. That's why I decided to use their native language. I'll move on to the research objectives. I'm aiming to analyze the elements which characterize Muchongoyo, to examine the relationship between Muchongoyo bodily movements and Ndau epistemologies, to explore how Ubuntu contributes to the safeguarding and transmission of Muchongoyo as Ndau living heritage. How did I get to the village? How did I reach the participants? With the advice from my gatekeeper, I had to observe the Mosurize protocol, The first port of call was to see the chief called Mutape Gwenzi. He gave me the permission to conduct the field work. But before that, I had
V. Hello, sorry, V.
She's gone again.
V, sorry, you are gone. No volume. Oh, sorry. I think she's having challenges with connection. So
You
maybe,
lost me.
yes,
Again, we lost you, V.
On which slide? I'm sorry. On which slide?
you are no longer sharing again, I think. Can you reshare and so that we can, yes. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it's maybe just a network problem, but everything will be okay.
Slide number 5, V. Slide 5. V, can you hear us, V? Slide number 5.
I think she's muted.
V. Vavariroyashe, are you there? I think she has left. Maybe she's working on the internet, on the connection. Oh, sorry. Yeah, she's back. V, you are muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Yeah.
Okay, I will, with your permission, can you allow me to present without my video? Maybe it can help on the bandwidth of the network.
I think on behalf
Are you
of,
able to share? Are you able to share the screen with us then?
Yes.
All right. I think it's okay for me.
V, are you failing to share or what? I don't know.
Hello, Tabu.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's just network. I'm really sorry. I don't know why it's acting up like
All right.
this. I've been using it for all the time and it's been behaving so well. I'm really sorry. So I was saying, with your permission for now, or maybe I can try once more to present with my video if the connection bandwidth keeps dropping, then I will ask for permission to present without my video. Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Phil, we can.
Okay. Allow me to start from the beginning. Right. Maybe I'll go to the research objectives. The objectives of this research are to analyze the elements which characterize Muchongoyo, to examine the and to the Manica village. How did I interact with the participants? How did I generate the data? Here's the methodology which I used. I took notes. I conducted some focus group discussions, interviews, filming, and I was also a participant observer. Why participant observation? Because dance is a complex phenomenon that has to be studied in its social cultural context, according to Laszlo. I approached the field from different positions. I was a neighbor. Why do I say I was a neighbor? I'm Zimbabwean, and Mozambique and Zimbabwe are neighbors. So for me, some of the cultural activities were similar to how we practice our cultural heritage in Zimbabwe. I was a participant observer so that I would be able to immerse in the performances and understand and share experience together with Ndau people. At some point, I became an insider because I stayed in this village for 2 months in July and August of 2021. Here are some epistemological support for this research. I'm employing pragmatic, which talks about human experience, giving recognition to human experience, as Geraldine and Pascal say, practice is embedded in its context. So in this regard, Muchongoyo is not preserved in museums. I would have gone maybe to museums to research on Muchongoyo, but it is in the Ndau society whose members practice and manifest its form. I also support with interpretivism, which talks about how the Ndau perceive Muchongoyo, how the culture bearers perceive a specific cultural traits. According to Go, exterior observation is not sufficient to account for a person's activity. it is important to consider his or her particular way of living, of perceiving, of making sense of his or her situation. That is to take into account his or her own world. Also, I am supporting the research with the Ubuntu epistemology, which is in simpler terms, I am, because we are. Ubuntu is an African philosophy that is peculiar to the indigenous societies of Southern Africa. According to Tracy, Ubuntu is one of the African humanism principles which describes musical activities. It suggests that society's moral behavior is guided and sanctioned communally, and it brings people together to perform the indigenous practices that delineate their identity. So there are also some disciplines which are supporting this research. Ethnochoreology, which is basically the culture, the relationship between culture and body movement, culture and dance, and also choreomusicology, which is the relationship between dance and music. As you will understand more as I proceed with the research, you will see how those disciplines interwoven are related to Muchongoyo. So now I would say Muchongoyo, according to the Ndau culture, is mugio or mutambo. It is a holistic ceremony that is made up of several elements and performed by the Ndau people during different contexts. Key elements of Muchongoyo include dance, music, artifacts, artistic gesture, musical instruments, props, ululating, whistling, and yodeling. Yeah, some of the some pictures of the incidents I captured, events I captured during my fieldwork. I will not give detail of each of the pictures, but I'll just quickly go through, starting from the top left, where we see the Ndau performing some dance moves, going down, dance moves, some of the living heritage which they're still using for grinding, the gourds they use for water, drinking water. And in the below the title heritage, you can see myself and the Ndau people during a focus group discussion. And from that picture, it reminds me some of their cultural heritage, that women are supposed to sit down whilst men sit on the benches, on the chairs, on the stools. And on the middle pictures, top, the people who are drinking from the pots, from the clay pots, and people just exchange the pots. They just share the same pot. 6 people or 10 people can eat from the same pot. I was in the village cleaning, helping with some house chores. And here are some of the outfits which they use to put their bute. And yeah, I also practice to make some ropes with the elder men. And here is at the right bottom, here is a place where they store their beer, which is an indigenous structure where they keep their beer. Here are the different contexts where Ndau people perform Muchongoyo. They perform this dance during ritual ceremonies, which include Magwasha, Shisa, or Mcherechezo. Basically, during the ritual ceremonies, they'll be appeasing to the ancestral spirits for healing powers or Thanksgiving, etc. Also during Ndau indigenous weddings and white weddings, chief inauguration competitions, in social circles and in schools, and also during festivals. So just to make it clear that drumming and dance steps remain the same in the context of songs, in all the different contexts, and the songs are contextual. They are based on the specific ceremony which will be performed. Here are the conceptual pillars of Muchongoyo. Muchongoyo.
Yeah. I'm kitchen mom.
Can I proceed?
Can the guys mute the microphones?
Thank you, Alois. I will continue. So now I'm talking about the conceptual pillars of Muchongoyo. Muchongoyo is viewed as a tradition and memory among the Ndau culture, meaning to say that it signifies the cultural practices that they have been doing from decades ago, now, presently, and they still practice even in some years to come, and they perform it from their memory, and it reminds them of their history, of their past. It is also regarded as an expression of happiness. They perform it during even parties, when they celebrate the different things in their culture. So it is structured relations, Ubuntu. How? I would say, according to the Ndau culture, the fact that they come together and practice different types of their living heritage, like I said earlier on, that Ubuntu is I am because we are, doing things for the others, doing things together with others. So Muchongoyo is structured, is a structured social relations. It also showcases cultural features. During the performance, as you see on the video, during the performances, they practice different activities like healing, dancing, clapping, etc. It is also an identity. It gives identity to the Ndau people. The moment you see Muchongoyo performance, the different dance steps, it depicts the Ndau cultural heritage. The salient moment. I call this my salient moment, the most remarkable moment, one of the most remarkable moments, should I say, during my field work. It is remarkable because it is. Can you help me to, to remind me?
Takuda, can you please mute Duty? Duty mic is on, and I don't think she's aware of it. Can you please mute Duty, admin?
Can the host maybe identify those open mics and close them?
Yes, the open mic is someone called Beauty.
I've already done that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. The host has to mute everyone.
Sure.
Make sure they do.
Thank you. You can carry on with me.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm talking about the most remarkable, one of the most remarkable moments during my field experience. The Ndau say tinoita muchongoyo pamwepo sedzinza, which means we perform chongoyo together as a clan, according to one of the dance captains. This also led me to relating more this dance to Ubuntu. And it is that moment when I was a participant observer, as you can see. For those who don't know me, I'm the one who is holding the big drum in a black top. So it was during this moment when I was a participant observer when I learned from the Ndau culture, the holistic nature of Muchongoyo, I would want to say, when I entered the village, when I entered the field, my intention was basically to look at the technical aspects of the dance, the movements, how the movements are generated, just that. But from the indigenous knowledge system, they discarded my assumption, my perception. They explained to me that they cannot separate the music from the dance, the artifacts from the dance, emotions from the dance, artistic gestures from the dance. So this is why I say it is a salient moment for me during this time when I generated data. Here are the dance segments. Here are the dance segments. I put both in Ndau and in English. So here I have Mushumo as the first segment of Muchongoyo. What happens during this time is the whole family or every participant, they go outside of the homestead at the backyard, like yes, at the backyard. They make a briefing. The family elders confirm amongst themselves if the headman is aware of the ritual ceremony or of the activity which they're about to perform. Also, they just catch up on how they want to do their performance. So at this stage, sorry, I think the host mistakenly muted me. So I'm explaining what happens during Mushumo. So it is generally a briefing when the family members are catching up on how they're going to organizing how the performance and making sure that the chief and the headman are aware of this of the event. There is no music, and Mushumo is practiced by everyone. The performance intensity is generally low because there is no music, there is no dance. Then after Mushumo, there is Mupindiso, the entry. At this stage, all the participants are involved with men leading, with Chaimen leading, men behind Chaimeni, and women behind men. Chaimen is the dance leader. So it is the Ndau term for the dance leader. One who is well versed with the dance segments and progression. So he leads. Now there is music, drumming from the drums, from the shakers. The performance is fairly active. From Pindi, so there is Saiza. Saiza is freestyle, and each of the performers perform their own style, synchronizing with the music. It is mainly performed by men, and they will be very active. From Saiza, there is Njenjenje. This is the climax where they showcase the main dance steps of Muchongoyo. They are selected dancers. The Chaimeni selects dancers through facial gestures. He picks them, some eye contact, some eye communication to select the dancers who practice this segment, Njenjenje. And there is music, and the intensity of the performance is high. From that moment, from that segment comes Chitokwana. Chitokwana, they role play what the purpose of the ritual ceremony. It can be a healing, it can be thanksgiving. So here also there are some selected dancers who are selected by Chaimeni through facial non-verbal communication, should I say. There is music, but performance, the performance intensity is low, so that people have time to see the role play. Then after there is Vaisa, which is exit in English. At this, during this segment, the participants exit stage with music, and the performance intensity is very high. There is a lot of improvisation, people showing so much excitement and enjoyment of the dance. Here are the dance elements, and they are key to Muchongoyo performance. They are musical instruments, drums and shakers. They have a role of motivating the participants, the performers, the dancers. Music also leads, directs the dance segments. It is the drum usually which ends each segment, and also there is a specific way of playing the drum which marks the commencement of the next segment. So this is why earlier on I said the music and the dance, it cannot be separated. Choreomusicology, that discipline, that's where it's coming in to support the research. They also use some props, clay pots, zingo, and others. These props, they signify some of their living heritage. Clay pots are used for different purposes: cooking, drinking. If you remember the pictures we once saw previously, so they have different uses. So at this point, I can say they are not used as domestic utensils, as you might know. The rhythm from Chongoyo is polyrhythmic, as you will also see on the video. The movement is vigorous, very fast, bound, and energetic. Muchongoyo compositional procedure is systematic, and there's repetition of cells. Systematic how there is a sequence which they follow. If you can relate to the previous slide, is from one segment to the other, one segment to the other, this segment leading to the other. So during those segments, there is repetition of cells, and there are no specific counts for this. The Chaimeni is the one who controls. The Chaimeni and the drummers, the music makers, are the ones who communicate non-verbally, and they direct the dance. So what it means is a specific segment can be performed maybe for 3 minutes, another one for 1 minute, depending on the impression of the Chaimeni. I talked previously in my objectives. I also talked about safeguarding and now transmission of Muchongoyo. Why is it important to safeguard? Why is it important to transmit? How is this done? According to the Ndau culture, it is important for them to transmit this Muchongoyo. And I'm looking at the transmission from an indigenous perspective. It is usually transmitted through oral tradition, that is participation in cultural activities by different people within the clan. They observe and imitate, that is learning through rote. There is informal, this is the informal part of learning Muchongoyo or transmitting Muchongoyo in the natural setting. But there is also some formal teaching in the schools. schools and institutions of higher learning. So yes, basically I can say this is how Muchongoyo is transmitted, so that it does not extinguish, so that it moves, it moves from one generation to the other. As I conclude, I would say, Muchongoyo is holistic in nature. Muchongoyo comprises of several segments and pillars. Muchongoyo is a composition of Ndau epistemologies as inspired by Ubuntu. Indigenous knowledge systems anchor the living heritage of societies. I would like to share a video. Can you see the video?
Yes.
Okay. I will not play the whole video. I'll just move on different clips. Can you hear?
It's not playing well. I mean, we cannot hear the sound, and
You cannot hear the sound?
yeah, I don't know whether it's me only, but I'm not hearing the sound.
Can you hear the sound?
I don't know.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is my submission. Thank you all for your attention. Taku, I hand over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vavariroyashe, for such a powerful and good presentation. Save for those hiccups because of network. But otherwise, thank you everyone for listening and paying attention and being patient with us. Otherwise, I think as all of us were listening, we had the whole presentation, we watched everything that was presented, and now the floor is open for any questions that we might have towards the presentation and towards the presenter. So I will leave this floor to anyone who has got a question. You just click the hand sign there, and I'll call you so that you can speak. Those who might not want to speak, you can use the chat box, and I can speak on your behalf. So it's time for questions. I don't know whether maybe I'm missing some. Let me put the view. But so far I haven't seen any. Yeah, Solomon Gwerevende, thank you very much. Can you go on with your question? Solomon, can you unmute yourself and present your question? Maybe he is having challenges. Solomon Gwerevende, is there anyone with a question? Maybe Wallace T.
Okay, thank you very much, Taku, for hosting this presentation, and thank you, Vavariro, for such a splendid and fantastic presentation. Yeah, I like your presentation because I'm also supposed to do my my research among the Ndau people in Chipinge, focusing on Muchongoyo. So I think we tend to share some research agendas, as well as maybe epistemological, as well as theoretical frameworks. And I was attracted by your presentation on indigenous epistemologies, such as the idea of Ubuntu, and in the context of decolonization, I think it's something that is very important, because there is this idea whereby researchers, especially from indigenous contexts, where they are trying to push for indigenous research agendas. But I would like to ask you a question. How do you justify, or what is the importance of this indigenous epistemology in your research, as far as the idea of decolonization is concerned? So I just want you to rationalize, or to just justify why you are bringing into account the idea of indigenous epistemologies in your research. What is the relevance? What is the importance of bringing into account these indigenous way of knowing dance and music? That's my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Solomon, for the question. I would say, from my understanding of this epistemology of Ubuntu and dance, the two are interrelated in the sense that Ubuntu is relating to the fact that the Ndau people, they come together to practice Muchongoyo. The act of coming together is what I understand as Ubuntu. The idea of coming together, sharing their knowledge system, their living heritage, cultural living heritage, practicing it together. That is what they regard as Ubuntu, Umuntu in their native language. So I would say, if it's not for Ubuntu, we don't see the clan performing or practicing their living heritage together. It would be an individualistic sort of approach. So the fact that it's a communal approach to practicing cultural heritage, that makes it supported by Ubuntu. So Muchongoyo is not living in a vacuum. Muchongoyo is not participated in a vacuum. People have to gather. People have to be together. People have to remind each other about their living heritage, and they practice it. So the fact that the Ndau people are the culture bearers of Muchongoyo, I would say, yes, it is important for me to relate the two, the dance and the epistemology. Did I answer you, Solomon? Or should I explain a bit more?
Okay. I don't know whether Solomon is having challenges. I hope you come in when his network is okay. So allow me to move on as we wait for his response to your response. I saw a hand before Andrew. There was Shailet. Is it Shailet Munozogara? I am not sure. If she is in, maybe you can unmute yourself and go on with your question or a comment. Okay, it seems maybe she's not. Yes. Okay, so let me see here. Gorewende.
Excuse me, Taku.
Yes.
Gorewende is saying he cannot unmute himself. Probably.
Yes. He's saying,
okay.
Yes, he's saying I can't unmute myself, but you answered the question perfectly. So I think it's,
thank you, Solomon.
Yes. Then we move on to Andrew. Can you go on with your question? Andrew, Sevlime.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you so much for that powerful presentation. And it's a very clear lens to really understand the Southern Africa. I mean, for some of us who come from East Africa, it is a very clear reflection of what happens pretty much in the entire African continent. Well, first of all, I appreciate the context of Ubuntu epistemology, like you've explained. It shows how intertwined or interconnected Africa, or like our practices are as Africans. When you related that to the inseparability of music and dance, because according to your field, you say, well, some interlocutors claim that there's no way they can dance without music. So that also brings in the togetherness as a community, as an African indigenous knowledge system, so to speak. But you also mentioned one important epistemology, but that you did not really explain in depth. There was Ubuntu epistemology and the Ndau epistemology. What is this Ndau epistemology, please? Can you throw some light about this Ndau epistemology? Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. When I talk about Ndau epistemology, I am simply referring to the human knowledge that I generate, or that as researchers we generate from the Ndau as the culture bearers of Muchongoyo. So basically, I can say when I talk about an epistemology, is the human knowledge, indigenous human knowledge, Is that clear?
So
Andrew?
is it like your personal personal interpretation as well, like the interpretivism approach kind of?
It's really, yes, it's linked to interpretivism, since interpretivism is talking about human knowledge. Yes, human knowledge, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Is there anyone else? I can see Bureken, you wrote something in the chat. I don't know if you have something to ask. Okay, he was just saying maybe he wanted someone to write some notes so she can reflect more after the presentation. Okay, so she's just giving maybe an advice that if you can write down the questions down so that even though you are responding, but you can reflect on them after this session. Thank you very much, John Bureken. Let us move on. I can see a hand up from Edward Sembachka. I hope I've called that name correctly. Edward Sembachka, you can unmute yourself and go on. Edward Sembachka. Okay, let me unmute you. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, the presenter. Actually, I have like a few questions, and the first question is about, you talked of Muchongoyo as a holistic practice, and sometimes we tend to forget talking about costuming. And from the few dances I've watched about Muchongoyo, I see quite different kind of costumes that are worn during the performance. And I understand it's a warrior kind of dance. So my question is about as we are trying to heritagize the holistic practice of dance, where is the place of costuming? Because there is a wind that is sweeping the whole continent of Africa, whereby so many we try to create a new kind of costuming in the name of trying to look different, or in the name of trying to sell our art. And in that regard, we tend to miss the point of heritagizing. So my point is, from the video I've watched, I've seen quite a different costume from what I've been watching. So is that a representation of that dance? And remember, when it comes to dance, dance is a visual kind of art, whereby before you start presenting anything, what we see is the costuming at first, all right? So that aesthetic kind of understanding we tend to forget and leave out. So where is your take on in regards to that practice in connection to the heritagization of that practice? The second question is still about Ubuntu. I know it's very much talked about, and we always pronounce this Ubuntu. To me, it's a naming. Of course, I'm basically not talking about the conceptualization of the word Ubuntu. I'm just talking about the naming of Ubuntu. I feel like we try to narrow down this because I understand from the perspective of outsiders, they tend to talk about Africa as one. Some people actually understand Africa as if it's one country. And I feel like as Africans, we try to promote this through, we need to diversify the names, or the naming of whatever we are trying to sell outside there. I understand, yes, we try to write on these bigger notions of like that we are coined, perhaps, for example, Ubuntu was coined by Nelson Mandela, and the outsiders picked up this word Ubuntu because of its understanding. But I believe we have these tribes, we have these many languages that perhaps we can switch this word Ubuntu in terms of naming, and then we give it that name from, for example, my question is, let me try to narrow it down. From the Ndau people, what would they call that word Ubuntu from their language? if I could summarize it in that way, so that we do not so much rely on Ubuntu, because just the name of that epistemological understanding of oneness, togetherness, empathy in that regard. So basically, what would the Ndau people call that word, Ubuntu? Then the third question is about, I understand Ndau, we have the Ndau of Zimbabwe and the Ndau of Mozambique, because I think they border Zimbabwe and from Mozambique. So the question is, did you try to note certain differences? Because I understand these artificial lines were drawn by the colonialists, but in actual sense, it's kind of one land. So did you try to note certain differences from Zimbabwe vis-a-vis the other side of the world, Mozambique, as it was coined or created by the colonial masters? Those are a few questions. Let me leave the floor to other people also to ask. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the questions. So from you, I have 3 questions, if I captured them well. And the first question, it was you were asking about costumes, right? What I would say about costumes, as you have seen on the pictures and video, the Ndau are not putting any costumes. Why would they put on costumes when they are practicing their living heritage in their homestead, in their village? This notion of putting on costumes has been brought about through these competitions among maybe different social groups or in the schools. So that's where people put costumes which are uniforms, which are uniform. But in from my experience in the field, nobody really was worried about putting on a uniform because they are at their home. They are practicing what they do every day. So yes, there are some similar kind of similar dressing that they are putting on, but they are not worried about having the same costumes for everyone. So what I would say is, when you talked about putting costumes, and I responded saying it is usually during the performances. And I would also comment that these are some of the non-musical or non-dance factors which we find being looked at by the adjudicators or the facilitators of the dance competitions. But in short, I would say in the field, no need for costumes according to the Ndau, because they're at their home. And secondly, I agree with you, the concern you have over using the term Ubuntu. I did not put it down, but at some point I mentioned that the Ndau regard Ubuntu as umuntu in their native language, umuntu. I understand Ubuntu is a term which draws many people closer to the concept, it being driven from extracted from the Bantu language. So the moment you say Ubuntu, it becomes easy for people to understand. But according to the Ndau culture, they regard Ubuntu as umuntu. And in my country, that's unhu in Zimbabwe, in Shona. Then lastly, you talked about some comparison of some sort between Zimbabwe and Mozambique, Muchongoyo. Yes, I have looked at both, but not in detail, especially for the Zimbabwean. I gave much of my attention to the field. I just said I want to learn from them and understand how they do it. Yes, if we read from some authors, they regard this as a war dance, but according to the Ndau of Mozambique, it cuts across the different cultural activities they perform. So yes, this is how I can respond. I'm not sure if I've answered you well, or if you feel I need to explain a little bit further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Edward. Right, we move on to Alois Maluleke. He has got a hand up. And then John Bureken will come after Maluleke. You can unmute yourself, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'm not sure about the background explanations of the Ndau people, but maybe it's because I know the geographical boundaries of these people, and at the same time, they are the Ndau in Zimbabwe, the Ndau in Mozambique. So maybe this is why I'm saying I don't know about the background information as she got it and as she wrote it about it in that piece of work. But I was thinking that maybe their identity and their Ndau background could have been explained maybe in such a way that we can get the aspect of Ndau identity. I don't know maybe if you're getting me right. Because why I'm saying that is because I know there are differences between this Ndau and the other Ndau in Zimbabwe and Mozambique. How do you take that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alois. I think this is what I had just said, that yes, the Ndau in Mozambique and the Ndau in Zimbabwe, the villages are bordering each other, right? So this is why we have Manica, Zimbabwe, and Manica of Mozambique. The Ndau in Zimbabwe, how I understand it is, previously I had seen Muchongoyo performed in schools and institutions of higher learning, where it was staged performance, where people would put on the costumes and all, and people mainly talk about Muchongoyo as a audience. From my experience in Zimbabwe, from what I've gathered so far. But when I went to Mozambique, this is when I learned that they perform Muchongoyo even during a healing ritual ceremony. Even when they are performing a ritual ceremony for a newly born baby, they perform Muchongoyo. When they are appeasing the ancestral spirit for powers. Healing or different. Blessed, can you mute? Okay, so this is what I have learned so far, Alois. In Zimbabwe, the perception I had was Muchongoyo is an audience in the hunting dance. They dominate. But when I went to Mozambique, I experienced different ceremonies where they perform Muchongoyo, as I have explained. I don't know if I am clear to you or if I have responded to your concern.
Yeah. You are responding, but I was of the idea of maybe if we could have seen the Ndau people in how they became in Mozambique as the Ndau people. Like this is the geographical difference that I was trying to maybe get an insight into. Who are the Ndau people, and what makes them the Ndau people?
Tagu, can you unmute those people? Okay.
Yeah, I was concerned about the Ndau people. Who are the Ndau people? Like what differentiates them? The identity aspect you mentioned. How do they identify themselves? So I was maybe expecting a part of their historical setup.
Okay.
understand, yeah. So
what I can say from what I gathered from the field is the Ndau in Mozambique claim to be Mozambicans, and through intermarriages, some of them are in Zimbabwe. I'm not sure what the Ndau in Zimbabwe so far say about their originality. But the Ndau I physically visited in Mozambique, they claim to be Mozambicans.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Malule. Are you answered?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Now, before we move on to John Brecken was the first one before Natasha Chanda. I will read one question from Blessed Gwaendepi in the chat box. It's written, from your assessment, is this cultural practice of Muchongoyo embraced by all generations, or it's only common amongst the old generation?
Thank you, Blessed, for the question. From my experience, this cultural heritage is transmitted from different generations, from one generation to the other. As I showed on some of the pictures, there are children who are there already observing, practicing this cultural heritage. So I would say it is, yes, it is performed by all generations. What I learned is in the field from the Ndau culture is, yes, because of the generational gap, the elders have more information or knowledge about their culture and heritage as compared to the younger generation. And something also interesting about the generational gap, when I was participating with them, they taught me the dance steps. So when I was when I told them that I want to learn the dance, they gave me some elderly dancers to teach me. But I learned something. It's not all the experienced dancers who can teach the dance well. The younger generation was able to demonstrate the dance steps to some extent, probably because maybe of the energy, the elders growing old. But yeah, this is what I noted. Everyone is still practicing it, but the elders embrace it more than the younger generation. I'm not sure if I've answered the question, Blessed.
Okay, thank you. I think Blessed will respond later. Right, we are left with only 10 minutes now. And then if I am to follow the pattern, John Brecken, do you still have your question? I saw your hand up sometime. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Yeah, mine actually is not a question. It's just a comment, an observation. Thank you, Ova, for such an interesting presentation and an interesting dance to close the presentation. When you were talking about Ubuntu, you kept on focusing on Ubuntu as I am because we are. But the observation that I made from my analysis of Ubuntu is if you take that path, you are most likely to meet criticism that you are focusing on a superficial interpretation of Ubuntu. So I would advise you to move a little bit beyond that explanation of Ubuntu and embrace diversity, where you engage more critically with the concept of Ubuntu. I think I will share with you some of the simple texts that I have on that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Briken. And I'm looking forward to the text. Thank you.
Okay, as we move on, can I call upon Natasha Chanda Martin?
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone. This is Natasha from Athens, Greece. I am the current chair of the Choreomundus Alumni Association, which is all the current students and graduates of the Choreomundus program on dance research. And I wanted to drop a line because this has been the only dance seminar series that I was able to attend, even in delay. I wanted to thank Solomon and Takue and Va and all the presenters for all these series because it has been a fantastic initiative, and I'm very much surprised with the turn up and the attention that it's been having. And regarding this presentation, which is a great documentation and investment of the variety of dance knowledge production that we are exposed to and how privileged we are to have access to this delicate information. I have done my research in Southwest Nigeria among the Yoruba, and I have, in terms of decolonization of academia, I have multiple questions for everyone at some point, but I think I will just leave a comment today, which is what brought to me, kind of identifying systems, dance systems and concepts that are developed through embodied practices that can help the communication of different ethnic groups, or identifying, common traditions that many people have around the world, bringing the global dialogue, bringing all these practices that we identify in the global dialogue, in the global knowledge production, intellectual property of all the people. I wanted just to reflect on and just set a question that can just keep going for us after this seminar on, does this knowledge production that belongs to the bodies of the dancers and of the bearers of the traditions, is this a new way of fostering intellectual property that showcases deep knowledge of a tradition and therefore should be a tool to access higher education? What I've acknowledged, what I've learned from Nigeria is that people who know, what I found out was people who know the language, the dance, the music, the codes of communication between the talking drum and how to express with your body what a proverb is saying through a drum. All this rich knowledge that in some countries is being lost, or in some countries we're trying to preserve it. In Nigeria, people are getting professorship jobs in higher education and in academia because of the richness of the tradition, of their tradition that they know. And I think this is a breakthrough for decolonizing academia and how we can bring the intellectual property of tradition and indigenous knowledge into the global scale of let's say, worldwide academia and what we call the intellectual community, which doesn't have to be identified through PhDs and postdocs and all that, that the knowledge that people have from their being, from their living, and the knowledge that they bring in contribute equally to this rich knowledge puzzle that we are creating. So I really hope that we can continue these conversations and showcasing this rich work, and that, we make a statement with what we're researching. So thank you very much for all the efforts and all the presentations so far.
Thank you very much, Natasha.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for such a wonderful comment and also contribution. So we move on. I will give this time to Viola Mugandani.
And mute myself. Oh, thank you very much, Mronda Godfrey. And thank you very much to you, Munoz. I normally call her Munoz. I know her as Munoz more. And thank you, Munoz, for the wonderful presentation. I was also of the opinion that maybe you had to bring out the historical background of the Ndau people, and I was really wondering whether you were in Mozambique or you were in Zimbabwe. I'm not sure, not so sure. Maybe you have to check where Gwenzi, Chief Gwenzi is from. Is he not from Mount Selinda, or maybe he's in Mozambique? I think you need to be very sure of that. I don't know whether he's covering both Mount Selinda and Mount Selinda, which is in Zimbabwe, and also Mozambique. And on historical background of the Ndau people, I think they all came from South Africa, running away from Shaka, if I am not mistaken, running away from Shaka. And you see, even if you look at the kind of attire that they put on, and you compare it with the Zulu dancers' attire, you find that they are kind of similar. And then in the case of the aspect of Ubuntu, which we call unhu in Shona, I think you also needed to kind of bring out what aspects of Ubuntu are shown through the dance, through the women's dance. You know, they are not vigorous as men are. And that aspect means that maybe they have to, be down, and as we are, what term do I want? As they are under men, they are taken as under men, and they have to submit themselves to men. And as a result, they don't even also, shake a lot, or I think you have to add something along those lines. Otherwise, I think you had a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mgadan. I would say about yes, about Chief Gwenzi, he's overlapping Muzita village across Machaka village, Muzita village, which is the last village just on the border of Zimbabwe, overlapping to Machaka village of Mozambique. So you are right, it's Chief Gwenzi and the same headman who overlap.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, V. Thank you so much, Dr. Mgandani. I would like to thank Vavariroyashe for such a presentation, which was very insightful and very interactive. We have come to the end of our meeting today, but this is not the end of it all. We'll continue to message you or to email you if there is anything that is also coming up, and we'll be hearing from our leaders. So as of now, may I ask, maybe if you are comfortable for everyone, maybe to switch on to video so that I can take a screenshot for our records. If you are comfortable. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Maybe a few are left. I will just take those who have already shown up. Yeah.
I don't know why I'm showing twice there.
Yeah, you are showing twice.
Maybe I had tried my phone before time. Maybe maybe I'm on both the phone and the
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Right. Some are just coming in, so I'm just taking as many as I can. Anyway, thank you so much. If we have any other questions towards presentation, Vavariro's presentation, maybe we can DM her or email or do whatever social media we can use. But otherwise for today, I would like to thank you so much and have a good day, good night rather, and good day to others. I know to some maybe it's... You can unmute yourself, everyone, and then say goodbye and enjoy.
Thank you, everyone. Don't be abandoned.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Nice meeting you today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Hello, V.
Nice children. Wow. Tari, you're blessed. Wow. Beautiful children. Wow. Thank you for that. Oh my God, she is already gone. I thought maybe she was going to. Anyway, it's okay. I'm ending the meeting now. Thank you so much. Goodbye.